we are going to get started on today's lesson. Today, we are going to be learning about how to follow a recipe in order to make banana bread. What kind of bread are we going to be making?
Banana bread.
Good job. Sometimes when we buy bananas, they turn brown before we can eat them. But instead of throwing them away, we can use them to make banana bread. So when my bananas turn brown, what can I do with them?
Make banana bread.
Great job. Alright, so before we start baking, we are going to review some skills from last week. So can you tell me how much this measuring cup is worth?
1/2 a cup.
Awesome. How about this one? Can you tell me how much this one is worth?
1 cup.
Awesome job. And how about this one?
This is 1 teaspoon.
Great job. In order to make banana bread, first we need to read the list of ingredients. For this recipe, it says we need butter, sugar, 2 eggs, bananas, flour, baking soda, salt, and vanilla extract. When reading a recipe, the ingredients are listed first, and then the steps come right after. The steps are listed in number order from start to finish. So you start at the top and work your way to the bottom until you finish each step. To begin, we start at the first step of our recipe. The first step says we need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. So to do that, you press the bake button, you set your temperature to 350, and then you press start. And when you're baking, it's always important to look in the oven to make sure there are no pots and pans in the oven. Next, looking at the directions, it says to cream or mix together in a large bowl 1/2 cup of softened butter and 1 cup of sugar. So we've already softened our butter in the microwave for 1 minute, and 1/2 cup of butter is equal to 1 stick. So we're going to add that to our large bowl, and then it says 1 cup of sugar. So that means we use our 1 cup measuring cup. We get our sugar, we fill it to the top so it's nice and level, and then we add that to our bowl. In the same large bowl, it says to crack and add 2 eggs, add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, and 2 crushed bananas, and we use a fork until they're a smooth texture. So we're gonna crack our eggs, and to crack eggs, I usually hit it off the side of the bowl, and then use our thumbs to pull the eggs apart. We do the same thing for the second one. And when we crack eggs, it's important to make sure there are no shells in the bowl. And then next, it is our vanilla. So we grab our vanilla, and it says 1/2 teaspoon. So we get our measuring spoons, and we find the one that says 1/2. That one says 1/2. So then we pour the vanilla into the teaspoon, but we have to be very careful to not overfill it. So now that it's full, we dump it in. So now it's time to add our bananas. So we peel our ripe bananas, and we get all of the skin off. So we place the banana in the bowl, and then we throw the peel away, and we're going to do that for each banana. So we add both the bananas, and then we use a fork to then press down on the bananas so they're nice and smooth. Now that our bananas are a smooth texture and there's not a lot of chunks, we can add that to our bowl of ingredients. Make sure we get it all in there. And now that all of our wet ingredients are in the bowl, we are going to use a power mixer to blend it all together until it's a smooth liquid. So we place the mixer in the bowl and we turn it on to a low setting and we combine. So when you're done, you just shut it off and you let the rest of the mixture drip into the bowl so you don't make a mess. And I didn't say this before I started, but when you're mixing, it's really important to keep your fingers away from the blenders so you don't get hurt. Now it's time to add the dry ingredients. In our large bowl, we're going to add 1.5 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So to start with our flour, we're going to use a 1/2 measuring cup. So this is 1/2 because we need 1.5 cups of flour. So get it in, you pack it down, level it off, and you dump it in. And we're gonna do this 2 more times because 1/2 times 3 equals 1.5. One more time. And make sure it's all the way full so our measurements are accurate. Level it off and dump it in our bowl. All right, next is the baking soda. So it says we need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So we're going to look at our spoons and find the one that says 1 teaspoon. And we do the same thing. We dip it in. We'll use the box to level it off. And we dump it in. And then last but not least, our salt. And it says we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So we find a teaspoon that says 1/2. And we use our salt and we hold it over the bowl so we don't make a mess. And we dump it in until it's all the way full. And then we add it to our large bowl. So now that all of our dry ingredients are added to the bowl, it's time to mix with our power mixer again until the mixture is nice and creamy. So we're going to put our blender into the bowl, turn it onto a low power, which I choose 1, and we're going to keep our fingers away from the blender. So we turn it on and mix. So our mixture is nice and creamy and there's no big chunks. So now we're ready to put it in the pan. So before we add it to the pan, it's important that our pan is nice and greased. So we're going to use Pam, which is a non-stick spray, and we're going to spray the bottom and the sides just to coat the inside of the pan. So then we're going to take our bowl and a spoon, I like to use a spatula, to scrape the batter into the pan. We need to make sure we get all of our batter into the pan. And once it's all in, I like to give it a good shake so it's nice and level, and it's ready to go in the oven. So our oven is at 350 degrees, and we're going to place it on the bottom shelf right in the middle, and we're ready to bake. So the recipe says we are going to bake it for 55 minutes. So we're going to set a timer for 55 minutes and press start. And once our timer goes off, we need to check our bread and then we can take it out of the oven to eat. Now I'm going to read a step off of our recipe and I want you to tell me which step is next according to the list. So preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit.
Cream or mix together butter and sugar.
Yes, that is the next step, Jack. Our recipe does say to cream or mix together butter and sugar. That's our second step. Great job. So next we're going to look at our ingredients. So here's a list of some of the ingredients in our recipe. I'm going to point to each ingredient, and I want you to show me with a thumbs up if it's the correct amount, and if it's not the correct amount, I want you to give me a thumbs down. So remember, thumbs up if it's correct, and thumbs down if it's not correct. So let's look at our first one. 3 eggs. All right, you thumbs up, so it says 3 eggs. I want you to find where it says eggs on our recipe. Can you find where it says eggs?
Right here.
All right, and does it say 3 eggs?
No, it says 2.
2 eggs, so our recipe calls for 2 eggs. So let's fix that up so it says the correct amount, 2 eggs. All right, let's look at our next one. 1 cup of sugar. Great job. Our recipe does call for 1 cup of sugar. All right, let's look at our last one. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Great job. What does our recipe call for?
It says 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
Great job. It does say 1/2 teaspoon of salt. All right, so our timer has gone off, so let's check our banana bread in the oven. So you're gonna wanna use an oven mitt since it's hot, and you're gonna pull it out. And what I like to do is I use a toothpick, and you stick it in the middle of the bread, and if it comes off clean, the bread is done. So we're gonna pull it out, and we're gonna set it on top of the stove to cool. And when the bread is cool, it's ready to eat. All right, now it's your turn. So let's look at our ingredients. What do we need to make banana bread?
We need butter, sugar, eggs, bananas, flour, baking soda, salt, vanilla.
Great job. Those are all the ingredients to make banana bread. All right, now let's look at our recipe. What is the first thing that we need to do?
We need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees.
All right, let's do that.
Bake 350 degrees and start.
And what do you need to check to make sure there's
Nothing in the oven. There's not anything in the oven.
Great job, Jack. Good, Jack. Remember, when we read a recipe, we start at the top and work our way to the bottom so we remember each step. So can you tell me which step is next?
We mix together in a large bowl butter and sugar.
And how much butter?
1/2 a cup of softened butter and 1 cup of sugar.
Great job. Let's mix together our butter and sugar.
Let's do it! 1/2 cup melted butter. And now I need 1 cup of sugar.
And how do you know which measuring cup to use?
This one says 1 cup.
Great job.
Oh, not enough. And now I make sure I have enough. I will shake the extra out and pour it into the bowl. 1 cup of sugar.
What do we do next?
I will crack and add the eggs. I will add the vanilla, and I will add the crushed bananas.
And how are we going to crush the bananas?
We're going to use a fork and make sure that it is a smooth texture.
Great job. I like the way you followed the recipe.
Thank you.
Good
1 egg
job.
cracked.
Gotta hit it. Oh, there you go. Now what do we need to check for?
Shells. No shells.
Good job. And which one did you choose, Jack?
I've chosen the 1/2 teaspoon because the recipe calls for it.
Great job. Way to follow the recipe.
Thank
Is it full?
you. Looks pretty full to me.
All right. Good job. All right, Jack, what's our next ingredient?
Crushed bananas.
All right, so you can go ahead and do that. Good job. Good job. Can I show you something?
Yes.
It helps if you press down on the fork instead of going like that. It makes it easier to smush.
Interesting. Thank you.
All right, does it look pretty smooth?
Looks pretty smooth to me.
All right, I think you can add it to our bowl. Great job. Way to get all of the banana in the bowl. All right, what's our next step?
Our next step would be to whisk it all together with the mixer thingy.
Yep. All right, so what do?
I'm gonna make sure my fingers are not near the thing. I'm going to hold on
That's
to
good.
the bowl, and I'm gonna turn it on.
And it also helps if you go in small circles.
If I go in small circles.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, Jack. Now we're going to look at our dry ingredients. What is our first dry ingredient that we have to add?
Flour.
Great job. And how much flour does it say to add?
1.5 cups of flour.
Great job. Let's add that. All right, Jack, which cup did you choose?
I have chosen the 1/2 cup
And why?
because I need to put 1.5 cups in. So I will do this 3 times.
Great job. Great math. Make sure it's level. Good job. Add it into our bowl. Awesome. That one got stuck, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Look at our recipe one last time. What are the last ingredients that we need to add?
Baking soda, salt,
Great, and how much of each do we need?
1 tablespoon,
Is that tablespoon or
teaspoon,
teaspoon? Great job. And how about the salt? How much salt do we need?
1/2 tablespoon,
All right, look at it again.
teaspoon.
Teaspoon, great
Teaspoon.
job. All right, Jack, which one did you select
1 teaspoon
and why?
because it says it in the recipe.
Great job. All right, put the baking soda in. Can I tell you something?
What?
Do you remember how I did it? If you stick the spoon in the box
Interesting.
and then you use the top of the box to scrape off the extra. Is it full?
Yeah.
I think you can add a little more. Now level it off. There you go. Great job. Put it in there. All right, now what's next?
The salt.
And how much salt are we gonna use?
1/2 tablespoon.
half a teaspoon. And are you going to use a different spoon than you used for the baking soda, or the same?
Different one. I will be using a smaller one.
What size?
Half a teaspoon.
Half a teaspoon. Great job. Can you get it? There you go. Right, hold it over the bowl so it doesn't make a mess.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Does it look full?
Looks pretty full to me.
Great job. Dump it in. Awesome. All right, that is all of our dry ingredients. So what do we do next?
Blend it.
We do blend it. So you hold on to the bowl and do those small circles we talked about before. There you go. All right, Jack, I want you to give me a thumbs up when you're all done mixing. Are you all done?
Yes.
Great job. Your batter looks nice and creamy. Before we pour our batter into the bowl, what should we do to our bread pan, Jack?
We should grease it.
Great job. All right, can you grease it for me? You spray the bottom, the sides. Are all the sides sprayed? All right, I think that's enough. All right, Jack, what is our last step?
We're going to pour the batter into the pan.
Awesome, let's do it. Use the spoon to scrape the edges. There you go. Did you get it?
No, not all. It's hard. Just gotta get a good grip.
There you go. Awesome job. I love the way that you got all the batter into the pan without making a mess. Jack, now let's be great bakers and see if we followed all the steps before we put our bread into the oven. So let's look at our recipe. Did you add butter, sugar, and eggs to the batter?
Yes.
Did you preheat the oven?
Yes.
Did you add vanilla?
Yes.
How about the bananas? Did you crush the bananas?
Oh, yes, I did.
How about, did you add flour and baking soda and salt?
Yes.
And then you mix it all till it was creamy?
Yes.
Sounds like we're ready to put it in the oven.
Yes.
Great job. And do you remember how long our bread needs to bake?
55 minutes.
All right, let's set a timer. And start. Good job. Now we wait. So Jack, what was the recipe that we followed today?
Banana bread.
Great job. We learned to follow a recipe for banana bread. Now you can use your overripe bananas for a dessert rather than just throwing them away. Next class, we are going to learn how to follow a recipe for apple pie.
Yay.